Welcome to the Salem Chamber podcast. I'm Tom Hoffert, CEO of the Salem Chamber, and we're pleased to have you listening. Let's jump right in. I'm here with Dr. Jessica Howard, President of Chemeketa Community College. Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Tom. It's great to be here.
Tell people at home how you came to be in this role at Chemeketa, and it's just been great welcoming you to our community, but you're not new anymore.
I know, but because I came in 2019, and then we had just a couple of things happen, pretty soon right after that, the pandemic, obviously. It kind of feels like I just got here, and yet a lot of time has passed. So trying to use this opportunity post-pandemic to get back out in the community and make the connections that I think was the intention all along. But again, we just had that mighty event occur. And a huge thing for the college to have to adjust to, right? Moving every single thing into a remote environment, kind of tough stuff.
Not a soft landing for a new leader coming into the community. You showed your stripes and have done a great job with Chemeketa, and I know working with its board development as well, and an upcoming possible bond measure and the like that we can touch base on. Your trajectory as a leader. So tell us a little bit about your early days and then getting into, the profession you're in. Was this something you had always dreamed of doing, Jessica, or did this come about after getting in the workplace and seeing where you could go?
Well, I would have been shocked to find myself here at the beginning of the journey because I always thought I was going to be a teacher and a professor. That's what I wanted. And that's what I thought was going to happen because, I had this very academic journey over, I think I counted that I was a full-time university student for 13 years. So it was, it was a big commitment and, it was a journey that I loved. So I came out of that and thought I was going to be teaching at a university. And I ended up doing that, but also teaching at a community college, which I had no experience with at all. And I just fell in love with the mission of the community college and never went back to the university and was a faculty member. And what happened was I actually won a full-time faculty position in humanities at San Antonio College in Texas. And right after I won the position, which was a really big deal for me, it turned out that the department voted me to be department chair 2 months before I even started. So I walked into this management role, leadership and management role, not knowing what was going on. And also, I was the only one in the department that didn't have tenure. So I was over a lot of folks who had tenure, and they were the ones who would vote on my tenure in 6 years. So, there's a huge sort of power differential and kind of strangeness there. But it was wonderful. It was absolutely incredible because I taught part of the time and I led the department. And then one day I got a call from the president who said, yeah, our vice president is suddenly going to have to leave us for a personal reason. I'd like you to be the interim. And I said, well, what about the dean level? Because there's a level between the department chair and the VP. And he said, no, I want you to take this position. So the Dean of Arts and Sciences was the person I reported to. So I reported to him one day and he reported to me the next. So you can imagine how popular I was there for a while, but just stepped into it and then applied for that and got that role and then decided I wanted to take the next step and came to Oregon. Portland Community College had a campus president opening, and that was in 2012. And then so I've been in the community college sector in Oregon since then and was able to kind of get a lay of the land and understand the other colleges in the mix and was just incredibly impressed with Chemeketa and just had the opportunity of a lifetime to apply for that president role and got that in 2012.
2019.
No, sorry, 2019.
Yeah, and
That's right.
It's interesting trajectory there. It's very different. The community college role is very different than the university role. And there are a lot of accolades that go to four-year universities and for people who get into that type of education system. I would suggest, though, community colleges are touching way more students per year. Do you have any statistics around that or things that showcase how community colleges are touching many more people than what one four-year college can touch?
Well, you know, it depends, of course, on the size of the institutions we're talking about. But I think the figure now in the United States is that it's between 40 and 50% of all undergraduates have taken at least one course at a community college. So that tells you, there's sort of this idea that everyone goes to university and some folks go to community college. Excuse me, that is not the case. It's something where you have community colleges offering college courses in high schools, dual credit, and then you have a lot of folks who come to community college on their way to something else. We tend to be a bridge to a career, a bridge to the university, and then we do all kinds of, and increasingly this is the case with this change in technology and this sort of moment of tremendous technological advancement and AI and automation, is that there will probably be few jobs that don't require skilling up on a much more regular cadence moving forward, and the community college is the perfect workforce training partner for that kind of constant upgrading. So I think we're a big, we touch a lot of folks. We also touch a lot of folks the range of students is enormous, from what I would call a high flyer out of high school who's taking college credits early, to your adults in custody, to your working adults who need workforce training, and I could go on and on and on. I mean, it's really, the more people understand the breadth, the more difficult it is to do an elevator speech, for sure. Because and that has its own challenges, because you're teaching this incredible range of students in maybe the same class. But then when we think about moving forward, I think there are going to be even more opportunities for community colleges to be responsive to the workforce, because we have employer relationships and really lean in there in a way that sometimes our post-secondary counterparts in the university sphere, that's not as much their focus.
Is it fair to say that community colleges can be a little more agile? We've seen it here. I mean, Chemeketa is coming now with a diesel program, nursing. The community college can jump right into these and get into incredibly workforce-oriented topics that can give that 2-year degree that really allows you to jump into a career. Yes, you can go on to the university if there is a need for that, but it's a real gap that is bridged by community college of either coming out of high school, or maybe those who didn't even finish up high school who need some key education to jump right into their careers. Why are community colleges able to be so agile like that?
I don't think higher ed has a great reputation with being agile, right? We're hundreds of years in the making. We tend to be siloed in terms of different disciplines, but community colleges are the workforce driver, in addition to doing all of the gen ed that is, of course, very, very important. And so we have a strength there that is, 30% of our operation is all career and technical education, right? And that's not including the non-credit or the enrichment or the add-on, those add-on pieces. So and then we have advisory committees that are made up of industry leaders for every single one of our career and technical programs. So we are extremely close to the employer and to industry. And that's what makes us much more able to and kind of queued up to be responsive. Because, curriculum committees and getting buy-in from everybody, that takes time. But we've got that kind of workforce connection that helps speed it up for us. And one example of that is in 2019, when the Senate Bill 3 was passed that allowed community colleges in Oregon, as in many, many other states, I can't remember how many, at least 26, something like this, other states, to offer applied baccalaureate degrees, which are bachelor's degrees that have an applied component. And the idea is that there's a workforce gap. So there are people who aren't going to get a bachelor's degree in any other way. There are gaps. They're all over Oregon. What are those gaps, and how can the community college lean in to fill those gaps? So, and this, of course, with 2019, again, right when I came, again, right before the pandemic hit. So we had to work really, really hard to keep that momentum going. And we were the first out of the chute to offer an applied baccalaureate. So it's that Bachelor of Applied Science in Leadership and Management that'll stack on top of any career and technical degree. And I'm very proud to say, and again, this is part of what it means, how wonderful it is to be here in the Mid-Willamette Valley. Western was a tremendous partner with us. And so right now, if someone gets that bachelor's degree in applied leadership and management with us, which, by the way, is structured so that any student, no one's supposed to stop working. They work the entire time. They should have up to 1 term's worth of credit for Western's master's in organizational leadership. So this is what it means to have a real ecosystem that's working together. And, that's just a really unusual thing, I think, sometimes. So it's a tribute to Western and to this area, because I think we're really trying to find solutions for our community.
I like that you talk about the ecosystem there and the interdependence and the feeder ability that you can work so hand in hand with the colleges surrounding you. When I look at our city, I look at what amenities, what attracts people to be here in a workforce here. I know you're training people up, and some of those people are going to exit our ecosystem and go other places, but many of them are going to call this region home. Chemeketa is an incredible asset in our community. Most cities don't get to say they have a community college in it. So we have this great incubator center for workforce. Chemeketa serves as an incredible jumping spot for many people who, number one, they can financially afford community college. You don't have to commit to a 4-year process. I always smile at the individuals, and I have some people in my family who have taken classes based on interest. I don't need to receive a degree. I just want to take classes that interest me. So looking at things from a regional standpoint, Chemeketa has its main base of operations off Lancaster, but you're much bigger than that, and you're in a number of our surrounding communities. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about the breadth and how big Chemeketa is and the different campuses, and maybe a little bit about what they do in those communities they're in?
Sure. It's a great question, because you're right. We serve Marion, Polk, and Yamhill counties, and then also Lynn County up the canyon. So it's 2,600 square miles. It's a large area. Right now, we have about 18,000 students head count. And again, you were speaking earlier about, the numbers of people we touch. Sometimes, their institutions of higher education are talked about in terms of FTE, full-time equivalents, right? And that may take several students to make one full-time equivalent, because we have a lot of students. The majority of our students attend part-time because most of them are working, or their parents, or their, ... So the number of actual people we touch is higher than you think because of that part-time configuration. So those 18,000 students are spread among the 3 counties. We have 7 locations.
When you look at the trajectory for Chemeketa, what is going to come next? If we got this, if Dr. Howard was holding a crystal ball, what should we be expecting next in the next few years from Chemeketa?
Well, big caveat, of course, I don't have a crystal ball, but I actually think it's some of the stuff we've already been talking about. Non-credit workforce training, it's probably centralizing employer engagement, really, really leaning into that. And then also doing focused work around technology, because that's affecting content, it's affecting delivery, and it's affecting employment in the future. And that's what we want. We want people to leave us and have a tremendous potential for the rest of their lives. We want them to be able to reach that potential. If the world around them is changing, we've got to change too. So really trying to think about, where the ball is going, not where it is. And that means really thinking strategically about capacity in the areas I just mentioned. And I also think the more we can connect with our partners, our business industry partners, but our post-secondary partners, there may be opportunities. We've got the space. What does it mean to have more higher ed or more, I'm making this up, healthcare or whatnot right here in Salem, as opposed to in the metro region or something like that? I think there's a lot of possibility. And I do think that because of some of the stressors of the pandemic, and, I don't think there's a higher education institution anywhere that hasn't been really buffeted by that. What does it mean? We all have an even more powerful reason to partner and to collaborate. And so we're really starting to do that. And that's going to be really exciting here in this region because I think that we are sort of naturally inclined to think about the community in a way that, I don't know, I haven't really seen in other places. It's this, we're going to take care of our own. We're going to make this place better. We're going to all commit to something. And that spirit seems to be kind of helping in this moment to help us create something that's greater than the sum of our parts. So that's a little vague, but I really think that's the way we can help kind of navigate a changing world.
As you look at the opportunities ahead, and I appreciate you looking out that way, what do you see as some of the real present challenges to what you'd like to accomplish? And if those challenges are present, what are some of the tactical ways you're going to get through these challenges that you're facing?
One big challenge is how we are funded. Mm-hmm. I mean, funding determines how you operate. And there are other states that are funding some of the training opportunities I'm talking about in a way that we don't. So this is something that I'm going to try to work with my colleagues around in maybe the short session coming up and maybe, down the road. I don't know how much traction I'm going to get, but I think that's huge. If we're not funded to create a program that industry needs, then we've got to ask business and industry to fund it, which maybe they'll be inclined to do, but it sure would be nice if the state would play a role in that. So I think that's a huge, huge, huge piece. I think, I also think that we are not, generally speaking, we are the least funded sector of higher education, and we serve the students who have the greatest needs. That does not make any sense to me. So I think that's always an issue. I also think that sometimes a lot of the conversations happen in the Portland metro region. And so we need to make sure that they're happening here too. How does the CHIPS Act affect us here? So getting into those conversations and being a part of that and trying to move some of the attention southward. I think that's another challenge, is that there's this idea that, really everything's happening up there. And I don't think that's the case. So those are some ideas. Again, staying connected, getting into the right meetings, being legislatively really active. Because of the incredible kind of Herculean effort of last year, we were able to now offer a BSN, a massive workforce need that we had to fight like crazy to get passed, and it happened. So I'm sort of feeling, happy about that and some energy around that success. But I think if we can really tackle the funding question, then we'll have a lot more ability to think creatively.
When I listen to our members at Salem Health or Santiam Hospital, Silverton Hospital, workforce is just a crushing component of what they're facing. There's the gig work of the travel nurse that has definitely had an impact on how hospitals are financed, but just the sheer lack of a base nursing workforce. So we applaud you for those efforts, and I think they're great strategic moves for our community, and we're just fortunate that they're based right here in Salem. Talk about some of the key partners that you work with. I won't pretend to know the role of a community college president, but I would imagine it does have quite a few partnerships that you work with in the community. Who are some of the individuals you work hand in hand with each day to make sure Chemeketa is staying very much in touch with your peers and components around you?
Well, a lot of it is we are close with Western. We also have good relationships with the private universities in our region. There are a number of them, very good relationships. Also, OSU is a big transfer partner, and so is PSU. So because we're not like Lynn Benton in Albany and Lane in Eugene. We don't have a single massive transfer partner. We have lots of transfer partners, and so that has challenges and opportunities in it. So I think keeping them close and trying to ensure that we are working together and not at odds. That is the big transition we need to make, and I think we're getting there. So that's definitely one. I work very closely with my community college colleagues because there are things that happen maybe over in this direction or that direction that sound really, really where you're getting a proof of concept and then you can apply it here. Our BSN approach is going to be a consortium across the state because we want to help the small community colleges in smaller areas where the the so-called healthcare deserts are. So this is not just us running for the fences. This is us trying to improve things in the state and being a leader in that. So we'll get there a little bit later as a result, but I think that the impact will be greater because what you said earlier is absolutely true. Community college students nationally across the board tend to stay in their communities. So if you're going to have someone get educated and get, for instance, a BSN, it makes a lot of sense to offer the affordable pathway that is known and is valued right here, and then there's a chance that that nurse will stay here. And that's what we want, right? So I also worked, speaking of nursing, I work really closely with hospital partners and CEOs, also with SEDCOR. That's a huge partner. When we work on things like our agriculture hub and all of those things, we are right there. We are a partner. We're a partner with Willamette Workforce Partnership, big time. And we talk a lot about how we can use federal funds to help maybe priority populations or certain career pathways become more viable for folks. If you want to become a truck driver and you have $5,000 in 4 weeks, we can get you to a $60,000 a year job. Boom, just like that. But a lot of people don't have $5,000. So what does that mean, right? That's something we should address, and that Willamette Workforce Partnership's a huge kind of partner in that regard. So those are some, and then depending upon whatever legislation we're active in, that also brings maybe some folks at my level, where we start talking about how we need to show up at the Capitol, what is our strategy, that kind of thing. Most of the detail around our programs is something that I would need to, it's always happening. So, but it doesn't necessarily have me in the mix unless there's kind of a public or an external thing we're trying to move toward.
We're talking with thought leader and president of Chemeketa Community College, Dr. Jessica Howard. You said the word leadership, one of my favorite words. We are trying to keep employees each and every day as CEOs and presidents of organizations. Talk to me about the workforce dynamic at Chemeketa and keeping great talent there and recruiting talent that is on the teaching and administrative side, not necessarily the students right now.
Well, I think it's safe to say that, the pandemic in education, just like in healthcare, really, it was a blow to morale everywhere because of just the sheer amount that was required to innovate and stay afloat and continue to be doing what we need to do for the people whom we serve. So I think there's an incredible level of exhaustion and saturation. And I think we're also really ready to move on. So I'm perceiving that some of the challenges of the last 2 or 3 years in terms of just managing what this pandemic did to us and to our students. You can't imagine what sort of being on the front lines of what that experience was like for the students we serve. It was really challenging. And then, our enrollment went down. And so what is it, the consequences of that for our operation and right sizing and then moving forward. So it's been challenging, but I have to say, I think that Chemeketa has, again, it's a reflection of the community we serve. It's kind of a small town feel, even though we're a big college. We're the second largest community college in the state. But we are relationship based. We are constantly trying to take care of each other. We are focused, particularly at this moment where we kind of feel like we're turning a corner. We're focused on, we have a special committee focused on culture and communication. How do we make that better? What conversations do we need to be having? We've got a lot more participatory governance around strategic planning, which once you say those things, people, eyes roll back in their head, but there couldn't be more dynamic participation in the direction of a college than being in that kind of body, which we now have. As we think about maybe a capital projects effort in the future, the first people we went to were the people internally to say, what do you need? What's important? What does it mean for us to be the community college of the future that this area needs? And so that's validating, that's listening, that's working together and just continuing to do that. And, modeling what you want the world to be, right? So asking the executive team to do that every day. And, it's great work.
Well, it's a calling to be obviously in a leadership role of a nonprofit. You're managing one of Salem's largest nonprofit organizations and really bettering our community. Let's talk a little bit about leadership at Chemeketa. You have a board of directors that is there to support you and encourage you and really help Chemeketa line its flight course. Talk to me about a little bit about your board and what they are starting to have in conversation as we look ahead.
Well, so we have 7 board members, 1 for each zone in our 2,600 square mile region. And one of the blessings of Chemeketa is how stable the board has been. I believe we had our first person who elected not to run again from the last 8 years or so. And some of our folks have been on the board at least 20 years. So we finally got a brand new board member, and that's Ethan Udosinata, who is the assistant superintendent for post-secondary at Salem Kaiser. So he's our newest board member. But the folks on the Chemeketa board are sort of in it for the long term, and that means that they're really focused on, making a difference, not some sort of short-term goal or small, challenge or something. It's the long haul. And that's great because then you really have a partner in planning and a partner in leading. And so we give them a ton of information. It's like they can't get enough. So we just keep giving it to them. And then, they're thinking about some of the big issues we've got, like something like 65% of community college students in the state of Oregon, and this is the case at Chemeketa too, are either housing or food insecure, which is a mind-blowing percentage. So how do we address that? Is the food pantry enough? Is the career closet enough? What about our partners with some of our community partners, Church in the Park? We're talking with them about what kind of options might exist. Childcare, of course, huge issue. And so they're really kind of grappling with what I would call kind of the future of education, the future of the community in a way that is far beyond kind of curriculum and our academic calendar and the things that you might think of. It's really more about how we can be an agent for change for the long term.
Let's end on a real aspirational note. As you look ahead, Jessica, for the next year, and you were to be able to be excited, what are you most excited about in the year ahead in your role? And what should we as a community be most excited about?
There is so much to answer on that because there is so much going on. At the risk of, I don't want to just put a whole list of things together, but I think what we're doing in healthcare is profound. I think what we're doing in the prisons is unbelievable. I think what we're doing in the high schools, like Roberts at Chemeketa, which is the high school on our Salem campus. If you want to have faith in the future of high school education, take a tour. It is unbelievable. The students will take you on a tour. We took our board, and then we had Salem Kaiser's board, and they all came out of it looking like they had a reason to be really, really excited, which these times, sometimes you watch your news feed and you don't get full of hope for the future, but it is all around us and it is incredibly exciting. I think that Bachelor of Applied Science degree is unbelievable. I'll leave you with this. How about this? We had our first cohorts, we're just starting it, show up for their sort of first meeting, and they're going to fill out the forms and whatever you do. And this group is we had slots for 15, 38 people or 37 people, something like that, are in this program. So we accepted as many as we possibly could. And you look at this group, and I almost teared up. In fact, I did, because these are working folks, right? Some of the guys have their names on their shirts. They've just come from work, these people. These people are committing themselves to getting a bachelor's degree. And this is the only way they're probably going to be able to do it. And what they're going to do is then grow the employer and the industry that they're in, and they're going to have personal success as a result. It's incredibly moving to know that there was a gap and we filled it, and that there's some incredible potential that comes out of that. So I'm just real excited, and I want others to be excited too. And that's where I would leave it.
Well, great job, Dr. Howard. You're setting a great stage, and we're going to be big proponents of pulling for you and your efforts. You've done some great things in the workforce, and thank you so much for your leadership at the organization and for committing to bettering our workforce. And that's a commitment we all need to have, but an organization like Chemeketa is actually tasked with making it a reality. And so great work on that behalf. This has been a conversation with President Jessica Howard. The president is Chemeketa Community College, your local resource in education, and even if you want to just take a few classes for your own betterment. Thank you so much for your time today, Jessica, and we can't wait to watch you continue to ascend up and make great things happen.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's been such a fun time with you today. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Salem Chamber podcast. The Salem Chamber is a 501c6 not-for-profit organization representing nearly 1,100 businesses in the greater Salem area. For additional information, please visit salemchamber.org. This has been a production of Dan Johnson and Lena Prine on the Salem Chamber's professional staff team.